I'm Laura and welcome to class today. Today's class is going to be a hip strengthening workout. So we're going to need some props for this class. You're going to need either a block or something that you can stand upon, so maybe a stack of hard books, or you could use a rolled up towel, anything that you might have at home, just making sure that it's safe to use and obviously it's not going to slide from underneath your feet. And also you're going to need a band. So I've got a band that's a loop, but if you have a resistance band at home that isn't a loop, all you need to do is tie that in a knot so you can create a loop. Now all the exercises can be done without the band as well, so it's completely up to you if you decide to do them without the band. So as we go through the class today, as always, look after your own body and just checking into that we're being safe. Okay, so let's get going. We're going to pop our band towards the side of our mat, and we're going to use the block to begin with. We're going to start to warm up the hips, bring some blood flow to that area in our body. So we're going to take the block down to the ground, and you may want something to support you for this, so feel free to be close to a wall or something that's sturdy that you can hold on to. But we're going to take our right foot on top of the block. And what I want us to do is make sure that this foot is parallel, so the toes pointing forwards, and then we have the feeling of width across the sole of the foot. So spreading the toes wide, the big toe, the little toe and the centre of the heel are heavy. Now we're going to take our weight onto this leg and just bring the other leg so that it's next to your right leg. And we'll just take a moment to find our alignment. So if you bring your hands to the front of your pelvis, and you're just going to check that your two pelvic bones and your pubic bone that create a triangle are level with each other. So this is going to bring our pelvis into neutral. And then if we feel that the spine is long, lifting the crown of the head to the ceiling, making sure that the rib cage is stacked over the pelvis, the shoulders are down and the neck and head over the shoulders. This is going to bring our spine as close to a neutral position as possible, which is the safest place for our spine to be. Now once we're there, we're just going to allow our arms to relax back down. Gently drawing the navel to the spine and lifting the pelvic floor up to connect with the deep abdominal muscles, and then just breathe into the side and the back of the rib cage. So breathing into the rib cage is going to allow us to keep the abdominal muscles connected throughout, but we want to make sure that we're not connecting too deeply with those muscles that it restricts our breathing. Now as we're here, we're continuing to breathe and find the connection of our abdominals growing tall through the spine. And I want you to start to take your weight completely onto your right leg. Bring your hands to the front of your thighs. Just slide your hands up to where the heel of the hands find just below the pelvic bones. And you're going to release your left leg. So my thigh bones are still level with each other, but I've just bent my knee to bring my foot behind you. So briefly, from a side view, it looks something like this. So I'm starting to feel my glute on my lifted leg, which is my left leg. And what we're starting to try and feel is that we've got to work quite hard for our balance here. We've got to work quite hard to keep the stability of our pelvis. And you're going to start to feel your foot kind of moving around underneath you. And what that's doing is your foot is moving to the terrain that's underneath your foot. So the squishier the terrain underneath the foot, the more challenging this is going to be. So standing on one leg or even standing in itself is going to work all the muscles of the leg all the way up into the hip, as well as the muscles in the torso for our posture. Now we're going to release this leg down, keep the foot flexed, and what we're going to do is allow the leg to drop down, which is going to drop the side of the pelvis. And then we're going to allow the pelvis to lift and hike on that side. So the side of the body is getting shorter because the pelvis is lifted. And you're going to do that again. So we're going to start to lower and then lift. Now the body's going to want to lean towards the supporting leg, which is your right leg at the moment. And you'll feel that that hip wants to push out. Try and keep your pelvis underneath your rib cage, and you'll start to feel how the muscles of the hip are beginning to work. So we're just going to do one more, and I'd like you to level your two pelvic bones again. Let your left leg completely relax, and just let this leg gently swing forward and back. So it's just a plain pendulum swing, and you're trying to keep the rest of your body as still as possible. And you're just going to do 3, 2, and 1. And then come all the way down. So we should feel some of the muscles in this leg really working. And we're just going to do the same thing on the other side. So the left foot's going to come up now. Check your alignment first. And as you come up, keep the toes down, level the legs, and check your alignment through your pelvis. Now if we're tighter on one side and it feels natural to be hiked on one side, the body's going to do that. It's going to go the way that it is most comfortable with. So when we're ready, we're going to start to lift the right foot behind us. Remember, we're trying to keep the knees and the thighs level with each other. If you see me kind of looking down, that's because I'm really trying to focus on my balance. So if it does help you find a spot in front of you, something that isn't moving, where you can help keep your balance. So glutes are working, the bottom's working to try and keep the pelvis level. My abdominals are working to keep my rib cage stacked over my pelvis. And I'm going to feel my hamstring working as well because my knee is bent. And when you're ready, let that leg become straight. And we're going to start to drop the hip down and lift and hike the hip up. So I'm trying to keep my pelvis underneath my rib cage. I'm trying not to let the pelvis shift to the side. So it's probably good if you do have a mirror somewhere in your house. It's probably a good thing to practice this in front of the mirror, because sometimes what's happening in the body doesn't always feel what is actually happening. So it sometimes feels different. And that's just our perception of where our body is in space. So we're just going to do one more, and then you're going to level your pelvis, relax the right leg, and then start to gently swing forward and backwards. Now this leg for me is my more challenging leg, so it's starting to feel that burning sensation, that good burn that it's working a little bit quicker than the other side, and it's more challenging for me to keep my balance. So this is a good thing to really practice daily. Really strengthen the hips, and then when you're ready, slowly release that leg down. Okay, just give the leg a little bit of a shake. And we're going to come down to the mat. So if you pop your block to the side, and let's make our way down. Coming down to a kneeling position, bring your knees directly underneath your hips and your feet directly behind your knees. And then we're going to bring our hands to the front of the thighs, check that the 3 bones at the front of your pelvis are level with each other and rib cage stacked over your pelvis. We're going to send the hips back into a hip hinge, keeping the spine straight, sending the chest forwards. When you're ready, squeezing the sit bones together, push the pelvis forwards and draw the abdominals in as the pubic bone lifts to belly button. Let's go again. So inhaling to sit back, and then exhaling to push forwards, thinking of pushing the front of your hips in towards your hands and your arms. Now we're just going to do 2 more of these. Feeling the squeeze of your bottom as you lift, and the widening of the sit bones as you sit back. Now lifting up, staying up, and from here I'd like you to lift your arms to shoulder height. Now staying in this position, we're going to take a very small lean back. Now as we lean back, we're aiming to keep the spine as straight as possible. Lift up through the abdominal muscles, drop the shoulders and tighten through the sit bones. So we're going to do that again. We're going to lean back and then lift. And this is called our thigh stretch. So as we go back, we're getting a stretch at the front of the thighs and the hips. On the way up, those muscles are contracting to help us lift, as well as the glutes, the abdominals really working here. So we want to feel the backs of the hips. So we're just going to do 2 more. And last one. And then as we come up, take a seat, shift the hips to the side and bring the legs around. Now we're going to pop our band around our thighs, so thread the feet in and bring the band above your knees. Now as we're sitting here, I want us to bring our feet into a hip width position, same with the knees, and what we're going to have to do is push our thigh bones out into the band automatically. So we really want to feel that our outer hips are having to work. Now just shuffle your bottom down and then gently tip the pelvis backwards. We're going to use our abdominal muscles to slowly lower ourselves onto our mat. Let the arms lower, and if you need to adjust the feet, bring them further in. So we want to have the heels roughly aligned with the two sitting bones, the knees the width of the hips or the pelvic bones, and then we want to check our neutral spine. So the 3 bones at the front of the pelvis level, and we want to feel that the eye gaze is forwards on the ceiling, so the back of the neck is long, the rib cage is down, and the lower back is the lightest part of the spine. Taking an in-breath here, take your out breath and tip your pelvic triangle towards your chest. Rounding your lower back to the mat, we're going to come up to a bridge, so start to lift the tailbone, the sacrum, the lower back, and peel the spine off the mat to come into a height that you feel comfortable with. Starting to roll back down, so we're softening the chest bone down between the shoulder blades, the back ribs, the waist, the lower back, the pelvis, and then finally the tailbone. Well, the sun's come out to join us now. So we're going to go again, tipping the pelvis backwards and we're rolling up. Now we're trying our best not to allow the band to bring the knees together. So we're having to work our outer hips constantly throughout our bridge. So we're going to feel the muscles that we warmed up starting to work now. But what we want to make sure is that that press out with the thighs isn't affecting the pressure onto our feet, and we're feeling those 3 corners again, so the big toe, the little toe, and the center of the heel. Now this time when our spine finds the mat, we're going to stay here. If you do need anything underneath the back of your head, then that's absolutely fine. So check your level pelvis and just bring your hands to your pelvis now, because what's important is that we keep the pelvis really still. We keep those points of contact with the ground. Take an in-breath, and as you breathe out, we're going to let the right leg come off the ground. Now, in this position, we've got to pull on the band, but we've also gently got to push out on the band. On the other leg, we've got to push the thigh away to make sure that the band doesn't lift the leg off the ground, and we've got to keep that push out. So both legs are working, even though they both might not be moving. We're going to tap this foot back down, and we're going to lift it back up again. Now the weight of your right leg may tip your pelvis to the right. So I want you to feel the back of your left hip draw deeper into the mat, as if you're trying to make an imprint of the back of the hip to the floor. Now keeping the back ribs into the mat, and you're going to feel how the left side of your body has to work harder to keep the stability of your pelvis. Now the next time this leg lifts up, I'd like you to stay here. The thigh bone is vertical. Place your right hand on the thigh. This is going to remind you to keep the thigh still. And you're going to extend the right shin up to the ceiling and then bend the knee. Now it doesn't matter how straight the leg becomes, what I want you to make sure is that the thigh bone isn't moving towards you or away from you as you straighten or as you bend the knee. Now keeping your thoracic breath into the sides and the back of the rib cage, check in that we've got pelvic floor lifted and navel towards the spine. No tension in the neck or the shoulders. Now either with a bent knee or a straight leg, we're going to release our hand and pop it to the sides of our mat. This leg is going to abduct, so it's going to move away from the center of your body. It's going to adduct, so it comes closer to the center of your body. Let's go again. So we push into the bands. The left leg's got to slightly push into the band, but not so that the knee is going further out than the hip. So we're just going to do 2 more, relaxing the shoulders back and down. This is really challenging for me. So I'm only going to go as far as I can keep my pelvis still. Now when the leg comes back in, we're going to make this into a circle now. So we're going to push out with the band. We're going to start to lower, bring the leg around and then back up. 3 more in this direction. So breathing in for half your circle, breathe out to complete your circle. For feedback, bring your hands back to your pelvis. So it doesn't matter how big your circles are, what we don't want is to slacken the band, and what we want to make sure is that the pelvis is still. And once you've completed, we're going to go the other way around. So 4 circles. I want you to try and feel your glute, the back of your hip working, and the hip flexor trying to relax as best it can. Now we've got 1 more circle. Starting to feel that hip really working. Bend the knee and pop the foot on the ground. That leg's going to be thankful for a rest now. We're going to do the same on the other side. So deepen the right hip into the mat. Take an out breath and lift the left leg up. Start to lower that leg to the mat and then lift. Now for me it's more challenging on the other side actually, for me to stay still with my pelvis. But on this side, I'm finding it a little bit more challenging to relax my shoulders. So we want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're not creating tension in areas that we don't need it. Because other muscles are going to want to do the work. The muscles that we are working aren't engaging enough. So this time we're going to lift and stay. Place left hand on the thigh, and when you're ready, extend the leg up and then bend. So it's really important to work the body in a level where it's challenging, but we can still work to our alignment. Because if we're working out of our alignment, we're only training the muscles to work inefficiently. So we're just going to do 2 more. And when the leg becomes straight, I would like you to either stay here or choose to bend the knee. Release the hand away. And when you're ready, we push out into the band and pull back in. So deepening the right hip, the right side of the rib cage, softening both shoulder blades into the ground, really feeling the back of the body pulling towards the mat. And that's going to enable the abdominals to stay engaged and to deepen. Okay, this time as we push out, we're going to take a circle. So we push out, down, around, and up. So I'm not coming so far across the body because I don't want the band to slacken. I'm trying to keep the muscles under tension the whole time. And what I want you to check into is that this right leg isn't moving around, because that's going to want to move to make it easier for your left leg. Change directions this time. So going across to the centre, out as far as you possibly can without moving the pelvis. Remember, hands are good for feedback, so use them as much as you need. Navel stays in towards the spine. Remember, we don't want that dome in action to happen, which is abdominals pushing up. Now coming back in, bend the knee, start to get a little shake there, and lower the foot back down. Okay, back into a bridge. Let's relieve those hip flexors. So tipping the pelvis backwards, we're going to roll all the way up. We're just going to do 1 more of these, so feeling the thighs reach forwards, the pubic bone lift, the rib cage soften, and then start to roll all the way back down. So we're going to challenge the stability of our pelvis again while we work through the hips. So let's roll up and stay up this time. And when you get to the top of your bridge, just check in. Are the front of your hips really open, just like what we practiced from the start? And feel the 3 corners of your feet heavy into the floor. We're going to move the right leg, keeping the left leg still. You're going to push the thigh bone out into the band as far as you can, and then pull back in. Resist the band. And again, push out and then in. Now the push out with the thigh bone is going to want to make the whole body move to the right side of your mat. Now I want you to work really hard here to keep everything as still as you can. We're going to do 1 more here, so pressing out and in. Change sides this time, so the left leg is the moving leg, the right leg is the still leg, everything else stays still, so pelvis is not tipping or shifting. What will want to happen is that side of the pelvis will want to drop. We've got to keep the glute on that left side working to push the hip up. So I'm trying to still press my pelvic triangle, my pubic bone up towards the ceiling as my knee opens. Just one more here. And then stay. Both knees open, close. 10, a little bit quicker this time. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lower all the way down. Excellent. Okay, we're going to roll onto our sides. So you may need any blocks or anything that you might want underneath your head. Grab those. And then we're coming around. So letting the head and the neck relax. Feel the armpit lengthen into the floor, but the waist gap lifted. Both your pelvic bones level and heels in line with your sitting bones, knees forwards of your hip. We're going to start with a clam. So we're going to press the knee wide and then release back in, not completely slackened in the band. And again, so we're going to push out and then in. So it's essentially the same action that we've just done in our supine position in our bridge. This time we're working a little bit deeper into the external rotators of the hip. So we're thinking of corkscrewing the thigh bone outwards, pressing the feet together. So you're going to feel a little bit deeper into that sit bone area of your glute and your hip. Now this time you're going to press open. Now my hips are starting to feel tired, so this movement's going to be a lot smaller. So you're going to lift the thigh bone and the knee up. Tap it down. And again, lift and lower. Anyone else got a shake going on? And 3, 2. Now last one, lift and stay up. We're going to extend the shin. Extend and bend. Extend and bend. Extend and bend. Last one. We're going to do 4 combinations of these. So we lower the knee, open, lift, extend, and then reverse. Good, that's 1, 2, and 3. Excellent. Check your pelvic bones are level. Don't let the pelvis move back. And last one. And release. Give that hip a massage. We're going to go straight to the other side, so push all the way up and come around. So releasing all the way down, find your neutral alignment, so head nice and relaxed. If you find that you're really scrunched up into your shoulder, that's where you may need a block or something to support you. Pelvic bones level, feet under hips, knees forwards. When you're ready, exhaling to press the knee out. Inhaling to return. So you want to imagine that the wall is behind your pelvis, behind the back of your body, just as the floor is when you're laying on your back. So we've still got those points of contact with that imaginary wall, just as we would have with the floor. So the back of the pelvis, the rib cage, the head, but space at the lower back. So even in this position, we want to imagine the feeling that both sides of the pelvis are level with each other. Okay, one more time. And this is even more challenging because my underneath leg's got to push down into the floor. So we're going to open and stay open. Lift and lower. Now we're checking that this hip doesn't hike. So remember that movement we did right at the start? Try not to allow the pelvis to lift to give us the impression that the leg is moving lots. We're moving from our hip joint. And last one, stay here, extend and bend. Extend and bend. Now as I'm doing this, I'm trying to imagine reaching my sit bone down to the bottom of my mat. And again. Good, last one. And lower. Let's combo. So push out, lift, reach, and lower. And 3. Really good. Keep pushing, breathe. And last one. And release. Excellent, everyone. So come all the way up to sitting and let's take a stretch. So releasing the legs out of the band. Take your hands behind you and then cross one ankle over the opposite knee. Flex the foot to protect your knee and push your knee wide, lifting your chest and pushing it closer towards your legs to feel the hip stretch. And it might feel nice to just gently rock side to side. And let's do that on the other side. So uncrossing the legs, cross the opposite leg over. Now if you're feeling quite tight in the hips because they've done a lot of work, feel free to spend a little more time stretching through the hips right now. And then release. So thank you very much for joining me for class today. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so that you get notifications for future classes. Hope to see you again. Thanks. Bye.